But I was just wondering how you're going to be, at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Are you prepared?
I'm prepared. I'm all right. I'm all right with it.
Aileen Wuornos, a woman pushed to the edge by years of abuse and rejection, and then the world learned the price of her survival. Aileen Wuornos became one of the most notorious female serial killers in US history after killing 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990. Living a life of suffering and abandonment, Wuornos turned to prostitution to survive. Her victims, who were men seeking her services, ended up dead, as Wuornos claimed that she killed them in self-defense. She said they tried to assault her, but evidence suggested robbery was the true motive. After her arrest in 1991, Wuornos confessed to the murders, and her trial became a media sensation. In 2002, she was executed by lethal injection, her tragic story serving as a stark reminder of the complex relationship between trauma and violence.
I left prints everywhere, and they covered it up and let me kill the rest of those guys to turn me into a serial killer. I know they did, because I was no professional serial killer or anything, murderer, or whatever you want to call it, It wasn't professional, it was.
2. John Wayne Gacy. Behind the paint of a smiling clown hid the twisted mind of a killer who lured his victims into the darkest depths of horror. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown, murdered at least 33 young men and boys between 1972 and 1978. By day, he was a successful businessman and active member of his community, but at night, he lured young victims to his home, where he tortured and killed them. Gacy's house became a macabre graveyard, with many of his victims buried beneath the floorboards. His double life came to an end in 1978 after he was arrested for the disappearance of a teenager. Gacy was convicted of all 33 murders and executed by lethal injection in 1994. His case remains a chilling example of how monsters can hide in plain sight.
Knots in general. Catch his sense of humor.
Shoelaces, huh? You're in trouble now.
Yeah, right.
Aren't you afraid sitting that close to me? Boy Scouts is a tourniquet knot. He said, well, show us what that is. So I took, at that time, and again, it's together, but in order to demonstrate it here, I took the rosary and I said, well, here, you put it around. This is hard trying to do this. Why don't you put your hand out? Okay, here. What I told him, I said, here, all you do is you wrap it around, you put one knot in it. And I said, then you put a second knot in it. Okay? Mm-hmm. I said, then you take a stick and stick it in here, and you just turn this. And I said, it causes a tourniquet. I said, that's the only knot I ever learned.
Jack the Ripper, a shadowy figure, stalks the foggy alleys of London. His identity a mystery that has haunted the world for over a century. The name Jack the Ripper strikes fear into the heart of anyone familiar with the history of serial killing. Between August and November 1888, this killer brutally murdered 5 women in London's Whitechapel district, all of whom were prostitutes. Gruesome nature of the killings, with throats slashed and organs removed, indicated the killer's deep knowledge of anatomy. Despite widespread police efforts, the Ripper was never caught, and the case remains one of the most notorious unsolved mysteries in criminal history. The fear and fascination surrounding the Ripper's identity continue to fuel theories and speculation, with his name forever linked to terror. He terrorized Southern California, creeping through homes in the dead of night, leaving a trail of blood and fear.
Richard Ramirez, better known as the Night Stalker,
Richard Ramirez, known as the Night Stalker, committed at least 14 murders and numerous other crimes between 1984 and 1985. His attacks were characterized by brutal violence and unpredictability. He would break into homes at night, assault his victims, and leave behind a chilling signature, satanic symbols and messages scrawled on the walls. His reign of terror came to an end in 1985, when a group of residents recognized him and captured him. Convicted of 13 murders and numerous other crimes, Ramirez was sentenced to death. He spent years on death row before dying from natural causes in 2013. His case a stark reminder of the terror that can strike in the most unexpected places.
One of America's most notorious serial killers died this morning in a California hospital. Richard Ramirez.
Dennis Nilsen. Behind his quiet demeanor, he kept a horrific secret, using his home as a tomb for his victims. Dennis Nilsen, the Muswell Hill murderer, killed at least 12 young men between 1978 and 1983. He would lure his victims, often homeless men or those seeking companionship, into his home, where he would strangle or drown them. Nilsen's chilling habit was to keep the bodies for days or even weeks, dressing them and conversing with them as though they were still alive. His crimes were discovered when a neighbor complained about a foul smell, leading police to uncover the bodies. Nilsen was arrested in 1983 and confessed to the murders, earning a life sentence. He died in prison in 2018, his case remaining a haunting example of the darkness lurking behind a seemingly normal life.